Hi, I'm Ed Painter. Welcome to my home in Cohutta, Georgia. You're watching the Painter series on delay and block productions.
Welcome back to the Painter series on delay in block productions. On the evening of July 7, 1990, Ed Painter was in Greenwood, South Carolina, where he caught two CSX trains. The first was a northbound of hoppers with a nice set of EMDs for motive power. Greenwood was and still is a busy junction on CSX transportation with 3 subdivisions meeting in town. Throughout the summer and fall of 1990, Ed explored new sections of the merged Chessie Seaboard system in South Carolina and northern Georgia. We'll show more trains in Greenwood later in the video. In the fall, Ed was on location along Norfolk Southern's Greenville district to record Class A number 1218 on a deadhead trip to Atlanta. He began his chase on October 25th at Courtenay, just a few miles northeast of Seneca. As in previous Painter videos, 1218 was headed for Atlanta to pull an upcoming NRHS excursion. Tugaloo was the last location in Georgia where Ed caught the articulated locomotive pulling the deadhead. A few days later, he chased 1218 northbound as it made its way to Greenville. We'll show that footage later on in the video. The next day, Ed returned to Greenwood, where he caught this pair of Dash 8s leading train Q690. The train was arriving at Maxwell Yard, where a fresh crew would board to take it north to Spartanburg, where it would then travel over the former Clinchfield Railroad. At the time, Q690 was a Waycross, Georgia, to Detroit time freight that traveled through the Carolinas and into Russell, Kentucky, before heading north on the Toledo subdivision through Ohio. At Abbeville, about 5 miles west of Greenwood, Ed saw this westbound time train departing for Atlanta. This is former Seaboard Coastline territory, and at the time, the 1890 vintage passenger depot was being used as a crew base. Unfortunately, the building was demolished in 2018 after negotiations between the town and CSX fell apart. West of town, Ed set up his camera atop an overpass, where he caught an eastbound time freight approaching in the distance. This train, as well as an eastbound coal train following closely behind, took the siding to run around the westbound that Ed caught previously in Abbeville. Both trains featured chessy-painted leaders, a common sight on CSX rails at this time. With the coal train in the siding, the opposing time train was permitted to continue westbound out of Abbeville. The next day, Ed was back on Norfolk Southern rails to record 1218 on the northbound National Railway Historical Society excursion train to Greenville. Lula was the first location he caught the train, a spot he frequently visited in the early 90s since it was so close to his home in Central.
Get out of the way.
You're ruining all the pictures.
Ed caught 1218 two more times, here at Alto and again at Ayersville. The following day, Painter saw northbound Manifest 118 at Norris, South Carolina, with a trio of high-hood EMDs for power. The second unit, 1626, remains on the Norfolk Southern roster as of 2023 and is used exclusively in remote control yard service. On November 2nd, Ed was in Emerson, Georgia, on the CSXW and A subdivision, where he caught several trains with colorful combinations of EMD and GE motive power. After seeing his first southbound, Ed recorded this northbound hopper train at track speed. It was likely returning from Georgia Power's massive Scherer fossil plant in Juliet. Following the hopper train, he saw another northbound, a time freight headed for Wauhatchie Yard in Chattanooga, Tennessee. With 8 locomotives, it had plenty of horsepower to get over the road. The next day, Ed recorded southbound Triple Crown Train 249 at Central, with B32-8 number 532 pulling the train all by itself. Over 2 weeks later, Ed returned to the Western and Atlantic to record more CSX action. Next up, Ed caught a southbound time freight with a solid EMD consist. Note the third unit wearing a freshly applied coat of YN2 paint. Ed caught another southbound coal train bound for the Bowen coal-fired steam plant nearby. Leading the consist of 3 trailing EMDs was a clean-looking ex-Seaboard System -7 series locomotive. In this scene, the train is running over the famous and picturesque high railroad fill south of Cartersville. Back in Emerson, Ed caught a northbound hopper train with a leased Santa Fe C30-7 on the point, meeting another southbound coal train, which likely came off the Etowah subdivision and onto the Western and Atlantic in Cartersville. The northbound with the ATSF leader had to wait for a southbound unit grain train, a common sight this time of year. It too was led by a C30-7, followed by an assortment of family lines and Seaboard System painted EMDs. Ed caught the same grainer south of Emerson once more, before heading up the Etowah subdivision to Chatsworth, where he intercepted another southbound coal train powered entirely by GE products. Five days later, Ed Painter revisited some of his favorite locations on the Pocahontas Division of Norfolk Southern. At Naugatuck, West Virginia, he found his first westbound, a time freight with a trio of 6 axles. Next, he saw this eastbound local with a caboose in tow. On December 1st, Mr. Painter returned to Blue Ridge, Virginia, where he stood atop one of his favorite roadway overpasses to record this westbound shifter. Norfolk and Western called its locals shifters, a unique tradition that carried on into the early Norfolk Southern era. At Falls Mills, Ed caught a pair of 6-axle GEs on a slow-moving coal train. Emerging from the tunnel at Big 4 West Virginia, this westbound hopper train, powered by 3 former N&W EMD SD40-2 series locomotives, rolled by Ed in the afternoon. Check out the power lash-up on this eastbound coal drag. In the evening, Painter found another train in Oakville, West Virginia, with a 4-axle GE second out. Jumping ahead, he caught the same train on this sweeping S-curve in Engleside. Next up was an eastbound time train with an 8600 series C39-8 diesel on the point. North of Radford, Virginia, Ed recorded this eastbound maintenance of way train exiting the east portal of Pepper Tunnel. The following day, Ed returned to the N&W main line at West Lynchburg, Virginia, where he saw these two trains meet. At Lynchburg proper, Ed saw this westbound hopper in perfect afternoon light. After this train, Ed would leave the N&W to follow the former Southern Railway main line back home to Central. The next train he documented after this hopper train was northbound Triple Crown Train 246. As he moved further south, he intercepted this southbound time train passing the former Southern Railway depot at Reedsville, North Carolina. On December 30th, he was in West Virginia for the holidays and decided to record more Pokey action in his spare time. At Williamson, he caught this eastbound time freight with a C39-8 on the point and a brand new C40-8 trailing. Ed didn't record any trains on this tape in January, but on February 9th and 10th, 1991, he was back in Greenwood, South Carolina to document more CSX trains at Park Junction. On the 10th, he saw a pair of Dash 8s pulling this northbound time train at Park Junction. Not long after the first train, this southbound coal drag appeared. Next, another time freight rolled through with two new Dash 8s in stunning YN2 leading a smorgasbord of EMD locomotives.
White light Greenwood.
Check out this loco lash-up with open auto racks carrying brand new Ford pickup trucks. This northbound hopper train featured two YN2 EMD SD40-2s in the consist. Taking a break from chasing the hopper train, Ed caught a local powered by two EMD GP40-2s at track speed. After this, he shot the coal train one final time on an overpass. Next, he caught a pair of General Electric C40-8s pulling a northbound time freight at speed. Both were dressed in the stealth paint scheme. Roughly 45 minutes later, Ed caught this northbound hopper train with a freshly painted SD40-2 on the point.
I ain't 453 to my gale.
In Waterloo, Ed spotted this southbound coal drag rounding the curve through town. The engineer must have forgotten to turn on the headlight after a meet, because as soon as he saw Ed, he turned it back on. Back at Park Junction, he caught a GP40 Mother and GP30 Road Slug pair leading yet another time freight. This one was southbound. Ed's final train on CSX that day didn't disappoint, with a 4-pack of EMDs working hard to move the Black Diamonds south. On the morning of April 7th, Ed set up his camera and tripod in his hometown of Central South Carolina, where he caught southbound Amtrak Crescent number 19 en route to New Orleans from Washington, D.C. Later that morning, northbound Manifest Freight 118 rolled through Central with an EMD and GE locomotive combo for power. An hour or so later, he recorded southbound piggyback train 221, making an appearance with 6 locomotives online and at speed. On April 13th, Ed found himself trackside in Gate City, Virginia, where he intercepted this northbound hopper train in rather dreary weather conditions. He later caught some pushers running light at Copper Creek, a famous railroad scene in western Virginia, where Norfolk Southern and CSX share mainline railroad bridges for efficient train movements in the heart of coal country. The Copper Creek Viaduct is a huge steel bridge on the former Clinchfield Railroad. Built in 1908, it's 1,091 feet long and 167 feet high, crossing where Copper Creek meets the Clinch River. Down below, a second bridge complements the scene. Built around 1890 by the South Atlantic and Ohio Railroad, it's now owned by Norfolk Southern. The juxtaposition of these two bridges creates a striking visual and historical contrast, often captured in famous railroad photographs featuring the Clinchfield CSX Santa train. This northbound CSX hopper train followed closely behind the pushers on the lower bridge. Ed caught the same northbound train again at Sunbright before breaking from CSX to catch a Norfolk Southern train at Natural Tunnel. Natural Tunnel near Duffield, Virginia, is a huge limestone cave in Natural Tunnel State Park, formed over 1 million years by Stock Creek. It's been a railroad tunnel since 1893, now used by Norfolk Southern and CSX for coal trains. Nearby, this super short man-made tunnel sits under the observation platform by the South Portal, part of the railroad trestle over Stock Creek. It's less famous, just a passage for train access, not a natural wonder. Ed caught the same Norfolk Southern coal train at Spears Ferry, Virginia, as it continued southward. This northbound CSX hopper train near Gate City was Ed's last recorded on tape 6, ending his adventure in Western Virginia on a high note. We hope you enjoyed this edition of the Painter Series, and we look forward to bringing you more episodes soon. Thank you for watching Delay in Block Productions. Until next time, happy railroading.